Water bath grinding wheels are great for sharpening many of our tools. But if your shop space isn't heated, storing them during the winter months can pose a problem. There's been lots of speculation about if you can use antifreeze with these wheels at all. Will antifreeze compromise the sharpening properties of the stone, or will antifreeze damage the stone? Nobody seems to know for sure, so we're going to find out in this test. I'm using my Jet slow speed sharpener for this test, and it's still using the same wheel that I got with it, and that's been functioning just fine. To get a baseline, I'm filling the water tank with plain water and making sure that the stone is fully saturated. During the grading and sharpening parts of this test, we'll make sure that the water tank is full to the levels specified by the manufacturer. Next, we're going to grade the stone for 30 seconds using the coarse side of the Jet grading stone. This is just to be sure that the stone isn't sealed up and to make sure we have an identical surface with and without the antifreeze. Now I'm going to sharpen my favorite spindle gouge because I sharpen it all the time and I have a good feel for what it's like when it is sharpening well. I've locked these settings in and I'm not going to change anything through the rest of the test. Now I'll remove the water tank so we can empty that and clean it out. I'm going to put some paper towel under the stone just to catch the drippings, and we're going to let the stone air dry like I normally do when the weather's warm. I'm going to let this stone dry out for several days to make sure all the water has dripped out of it and evaporated. Then we're going to repeat all these tests only with antifreeze in the water. I chose a Sierra brand of antifreeze for this test because its label says that it's safer for humans and animals. But it's not 100% safe, and I couldn't find any that is 100% safe. Consequently, it's necessary to take precautions to make sure that this stuff doesn't get mixed up with people or animals. This chart shows a protection offered by different concentrations of antifreeze in water. I chose a 50-50 mix of antifreeze and water because it gives protection down to 26 degrees below zero, and that should be good for many parts of the world. I didn't do anything fancy with measuring or mixing. I filled the pitcher up about halfway with water and then filled the rest with the antifreeze. And with the wheel running, I began filling the tank with the solution. I kept topping off the tank as the wheel became saturated. Then when the wheel stopped taking on more of the fluid, I topped the tank off to the level specified by the manufacturer. As I do with the plain water, I graded the wheel for 30 seconds using the coarse side of the Jet grading stone. This was to try and duplicate the surface quality that we had with the pure water test earlier. Then with the wheel fully saturated with the water antifreeze mix and freshly graded, I started sharpening my spindle gouge again. This is the same gouge used for the earlier test, and all the settings have remained locked in place. And now with the wheel fully saturated with the water antifreeze solution, I couldn't tell any difference at all between the grinding characteristics of the wheel now or with the plain water earlier. I can feel the wheel grinding the tool, and there seems to be about the same amount of resistance. I also colored the bevel to make sure that we were in fact grinding the entire bevel, and that turned out to be true. In terms of its grinding characteristics, the wheel does not appear to have changed at all. I removed the tank from the machine and let the wheel drip dry. I didn't do anything unusual to try and dry the wheel faster. I put some paper towel under the wheel to catch the drippings, but that's all we did. The rest is left up to gravity in the air. During this test, this 14-degree reading is the lowest we saw. And you can see here that the wheel is directly in front of that vent in the garage door and exposed to the cold air from outside. The wheel's been left to drip dry overnight in the cold, and it still feels dry to the touch. And despite the 14-degree temperature measured right here, the water in the tank is still ice-free and hasn't thickened up. My grinding wheel has been resaturated with the water antifreeze mix every day at least once. After several days of exposure to this water antifreeze mix, the wheel does not have any buildup and doesn't feel slick to the touch. This is the final day of the test, and we're going to once again make sure that the wheel is fully saturated with the water antifreeze mix. Over the last 2 days of the test, I haven't regraded the stone because you wanted to see if there'd be any buildup or if the stone would seal up faster with the antifreeze. And as it's been through the whole test, the stone hasn't changed at all that I can tell. The wheel still grinds just like it always did and seems to remove metal just as fast as always. If the antifreeze solution is having an effect on the wheel, it's too small to tell. I'll continue to use this water antifreeze mix over the rest of the winter, and will report back in spring if there's any change to the stone. I doubt that anything will change, seeing as how the stone has been saturated with this mixture for over 7 days now. If you use a wet sharpening system and don't have full-time heat in your shop, this might be something to consider. The Sierra brand antifreeze is the only one we tried, and I only tried it with this jet sharpener. And although they call this a safer antifreeze, I treat it like it's poison just to be safe.